I must say I owe much of my financial success to a man I call my rich dad, who was my childhood best friend's father. He made me realize that there's a very big difference between what the rich teach their kids about money, that the poor don't teach their kids about money. My real dad, or my biological father, was the head of education for the state of Hawaii. I call him my poor dad simply because he was a high-paid government official. He made a lot of money, yet at the end of every month he was broke. My rich dad, on the other hand, was my best friend's father, and he ultimately became one of the wealthiest men in the state of Hawaii. And by the way, my rich dad was a high school dropout. One dad had a habit of saying, "I can't afford it." My rich dad, on the other hand, forbade his son and I from ever saying, "I can't afford it." My poor dad always said, "Our house is an asset, and it's our largest investment." My rich dad said, "Your house is not an asset, it's a liability, and if it's your largest investment, you're in financial trouble." My poor dad believed in job security. He said, look for a company that had excellent pay, good benefits such as medical, vacation, and other types of perks. My rich dad said that entitlement mentality kept people financially weak and financially needy. My poor dad always said, find a safe, secure job and work your way up the corporate ladder. My rich dad said, why not just own the ladder? Rich dad said, you always tell an employee by their words. They use the same words all the time. So an employee will always say, I'm looking for a safe, secure job with benefits. Always. My rich dad also said you can always tell a self-employed person because they'll say such things as, I'm going to charge you 6% commission, like a real estate salesperson, or $100 per hour, or I'm going to charge you for the job by this much. So they go, for these people, time is money. And the business owner, what they say, I'm looking for the smart people, best people, I'm looking for the best system. They don't, because they want to move on and start another business. They want to have multiple corporations. Very big difference. And an investor says, I want an ROI. Now, the theme song for the self-employed, the difference between the small business owner and the big business owner is very simply this. A big business owner, if they do the job right and build the company, they can leave. And when they come back, the company's doing better without them, more profitable because they have the bright people running it. A self-employed or a small business owner, if they leave, the income goes where? Down. Or if they have employees, they just ferret out they just take everything, the thing falls apart. So that's the difference. And also the difference between an S and a B is the size of their ideas. Like a lot of times I meet people come up to me and say, I want to start a hamburger stand. One hamburger stand, Whereas the same guy named Ray Kroc comes and says, I'm going to build a hamburger stand all over the world. Difference in vision, idea, and leadership skills. They're very, very different people. So I don't want a paycheck. I haven't had a paycheck, a normal paycheck, since 1978. Why? Because I get taxed. Right. If I take a paycheck, I'm taxed. If I save money and I get interest, I'm taxed. Mm. If I put money in my pension plan, the money comes out, I'm taxed. So the reason the rich are richer is they know how to use debt and taxes to get rich. Rich, for most people, when they think of rich, they're high-income people. Like doctors or lawyers. They're not rich people, they're high-income people. Mm-hmm. Most sports stars are bankrupt 5 years after making sometimes $10, $20 million a year. Wow. So they're high-income rich. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I am wealthy rich, right. So my assets produce money. Mm-hmm. So like last year, or this year, I think I picked up another 1,600 rental properties. And it's a college town. All that, mm-hmm. Parents always send their kids to college, so mm-hmm. Cash flows in, I pay no tax, it's 100% debt financed, it's wonderful stuff. I think the big mistake is, I hear so many people say it's important to save. That's ridiculous. And the reason that's ridiculous is because what happened in 1971 is crucial. In 1971, the U.S. dollar stopped being money. In 1971, the U.S. dollar became a currency. And what that meant is Richard Nixon, in 1971, the president, took us off the gold standard. That's like giving an alcoholic free rein to the bar. Or it's like giving somebody who can't control their spending unlimited credit cards. So what's happening is all the savers today are losers. The problem with 1971 is that the federal government keeps printing money, so the value of your money keeps going down. So these people, I'm saving,
And if you notice, as the value of the dollar goes down, prices go up. So they call this inflation. You know, you look at in 1997, oil was about, I think, $10 a barrel. 10 years later, it's about $135 a barrel. So they say it's inflation, but really what it is the dollar's value coming down. So savers are getting wiped out today. So to keep saying to yourself and to your kids to save money, that is not the new rule. That's an old rule. So a very big problem for most people is stop using the word save and use the word hedge. You've got to hedge your money, hedge against losses. Like when I buy a stock, I put a hedge in. I put a stop loss or a put inside of it or a call, whatever I'm doing. I want to stop it. So today, I don't save money. I'm hedging. So in 1997, I started investing in oil, gold, and silver. So as the dollar dropped, oil, gold, and silver went up. So I'm not betting so much on oil, gold, and silver. I'm betting against the U.S. dollar. And that's why this idea that you're going to tell people you need to save money, that's really, really an obsolete idea, because the idea went obsolete in 1971. The U.S. dollar in the last few years has lost almost 80% of its purchasing power. And the prediction is, because this has happened throughout history, it happened thousands of years ago with the Romans, with the Greeks, with the Germans, with the English, the Japanese, and the Chinese. Every time they've made money into a currency, something you could print at unlimited, every time that has happened, the currency has gone to its true value, which is zero. So I am afraid as this economic volatility continues, the savers who were operating by the old rules of money are just going to get wiped out because the purchasing power of their dollar is going to go down. So even if the bank's paying you 5 to 10% interest, you can't keep up with the banks printing money. So that's the old rule of money, is saving money, and the new rule is hedge. You've got to be able to see what's coming up as something else is coming down.
And that's one of the biggest middle-class traps. They say, my banker says my house is an asset. And my rich dad would say, if you can read a financial statement, you can read that your house is actually a liability. I'm not saying don't buy a house. Mm-hmm. And I like big houses, and I like the finer things of life. Just don't call a liability an asset. And what's trapping the middle class is they're buying liabilities they think are assets. So I think one of the biggest mistakes we've been going into is a lot of times people actually think if I win the lottery, then I'll be rich. Or if I go to Vegas or gamble or my luck changes, then I'll be rich. It has nothing to do with it. Money is a very powerful tool, as my rich dad used to say. If you use it well, it'll make you richer. If you abuse it, it'll make you poor. So one of the big things that my poor dad made the mistake of saying, he always thought that if he got a pay raise, that would solve his money problems. And the trouble is, every time he got a pay raise, he got bigger problems. So it made him poorer and poorer the more money he made.
And as I explained in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, your house is not an asset. So basically most people have a house they think is an asset, but every month it's costing them money through a thing called a mortgage payment. That's why they're broke. So what makes a person rich, like what makes me rich, is very simply I have assets such as businesses. I have the Rich Dad business. Every month, lots of money comes in. I also have real estate. I also have stocks and bonds, and I have commodities, such as I am a partner in oil companies, and every month the cash flows into me. So this is the model of a rich person. Whether I work or not, money comes in, okay? And that's what makes me rich. Most people, all they have is a mortgage payment, car payment, college loan payments and all that. That's a poor person, okay? So what makes the same thing that makes a rich person rich and what makes a well-designed business rich is that as a sophisticated investor, let's say this is a rich business, when I wrote the business plan for Rich Dad, Poor Dad, this company now, is that I had to design in assets. So one of the biggest assets Rich Dad has is we are a brand and we license our name. So all over the world, there's about 60 people who every month send me money. It was designed into the business plan. For example, with Rich Dad, Poor Dad, every month, people like in Japan and China and Asia and Europe, every month they send me money. The second thing is every time I write a book, every month money comes in. When I design my board game, every month money comes in. And what else we have? When we have seminars, more money comes in. So every month, the business of Rich Dad gets richer and richer because we're constantly setting up more assets. So what makes a person rich is the same thing that makes a business rich. So when I designed the Rich Dad company, I designed it to be a rich company. Once I designed this, it was very easy to raise capital. Capital poured in because sophisticated investors, people on the B and I side of the quadrant, saw that I knew how to build a rich, stable company. So today, the Rich Dad company has zero debt and just tons of cash flow coming in, regardless if I work or not.
You see, the difference between a school teacher and an entrepreneur. In school, they punish you for making mistakes.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs know you're not going to learn anything unless you make a mistake. So I've made so many mistakes. I mean, last year I made a lot of mistakes. But each mistake I make, I get smarter. It's like standing up and falling down, standing up and falling down. It's like learning a language. You make a lot of mistakes. It's like riding a bicycle. It's like flying a plane. You make a lot of mistakes. And hopefully you live through it. I don't know what the heck with people think about money, but that's what I get a lot of is kind of this, money's not spiritual. I'm just saying it's your attitudes, a person's attitude towards money. I make a lot of money, but I give a lot. You know what I mean? It goes to biblical principle. The more you give, the more you receive. So when I meet somebody who's doesn't have any money, it just means they're not giving something.
Yeah.
So a lot of times there's people who would like more, but they're not giving anything.
Yeah.
So they're like my poor dad. He belonged to the labor unions, and he wanted to work less and get paid more. Well, that's anti-religious to me.
Yeah.
If you want to get paid more, work more, give more. That's how I see it. That's what concerns me today in this crisis. America is broke, it's bankrupt. England may go next, France may go next, China may go next. And that'll spread poverty even greater, which will cause a greater gap between the rich and everybody else. In America today, we have a middle class, but it's going down very fast. They're all becoming poor. And Obama thinks the way you end poverty is give people money. That's never worked. You don't give people money. You have to teach people. And so our school systems don't teach us anything about money, so poverty keeps increasing. I think the most important thing we have to do is we have to convert to solar power as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Because what keeps people poor is guys like me selling oil all the time.
Yeah.
As soon as there's solar power, there will be more wealth on planet Earth. There'll be less destruction, less environmental damage. But there are people who don't want solar or wind or tidal energy to come in. And as soon as that happens, there'll be greater wealth. Right now, it costs too much money to live. It costs too much money to drive a car. Oil affects everything. Affects food, affects clothing, lights.